Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome back. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled Podcast from Sydney, Australia. I'm here. Steve's here. Steve is the co-host of the podcast. My name is Michael Bass. Good morning, Steve.
Hello, Michael. I'm glad to be a guest on your show.
Steve is the co-host of the PorscheCooled Podcast. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that. I know there's a lot of action in the podcast world at the moment, in the Porsche podcast world. I tell you, it's all happening out there. Everyone's special guesting and appearing on everyone's podcast. It's all going crazy. I can't keep up with it.
It's just like an orgy of Porsche enthusiasts. What do you call an orgy of
Porsche enthusiasts? There's a title for anyone listening that needs a title for the next podcast. An orgy of Porsche enthusiasts. I'm not going to use it, so feel free to use it.
Hey, how did the 12-minute long QR code thing go down? Did you get any commentary on that?
Yeah, someone said they really enjoyed it. Paul from Reengineering. You remember Paul? He's doing the 550, the Spider kit from the UK.
With the design or engineering students.
Yes. Paul's got a really good project. Check that out at Reengineering. Go and give him a follow. Follow his project. He's on YouTube as well. I think Paul enjoyed it. I think Paul sent me a message. Didn't you, Paul? I don't know. I'm talking to you like you're going to answer, but I'm pretty sure you said something about the QR code. I apologize for that. I was actually editing it, and when I was editing the podcast, which I do with every podcast, I had Steve in the back of my head saying, "Cut it out, mate, cut it out," but I left it in there.
I wasn't serious. Well, yeah, I was just like, just a long bit that's non-car related.
A long bit. I hope this podcast is not a long bit. I hope it's not becoming a long bit. I hope it's still enjoyable. Steve, let's talk about a few things. We've got a lot to get through today because we're going to do some profiling today. We're going to do some profiling in our my inexperienced way. You're experienced, more experienced than me.
Don't know about that, but yeah.
We're going to do some Porsche profiling. What is the typical Porsche owner? But before we do that, let's talk about something we always talk about, your exhaust. Because during the week, you took it to a garage near where you live and you switched out that loud exhaust, which was loud for a reason. Do you want to tell everyone what happened?
The valve got stuck. Turned out that the valves are actuated by vacuum, and where it meets the exhaust, it was sort of split a little bit, which meant when I was hitting, I've got the little Carnule remote which can force the valves open and closed. Effectively my valves were stuck open on my heinously loud exhaust, which when the valves are stuck open, it behaves pretty much like a cut straight through type exhaust, which is loud.
Think racetrack.
And I don't even know that, but what I do know, I've mentioned it before, is that on a couple of drives ago when I hung out with Marco, and I wasn't sleeping, I had a headache, blah, blah, blah. Like it was just, I found it a bit much on the drive home from that one. So it sort of prompted me to kind of consider going back one step and going to a sort of not quite so aggressive exhaust option.
And it's good you have the options, right? It's good that you have this supply of exhaust that you can just switch around. You know, you can mix and match.
Some might say.
Mix and match. Some might say. Mix and match parts.
Some might say, some may not. Yeah. So I took the plunge and just sort of thought, I'll kind of go back one step and pull this kind of fairly loud one, which I think I've had probably not quite a year, but maybe close to it. It did make me also sort of ponder, part of the reason why I think it's sort of changed for me is that since Marco got his turbo, and you've been away obviously, I've had the chance, like I've had a kind of car convoy buddy to go on sort of more fun, twisty, longer drives, whereas in the past I was getting my jollies out of just driving to my parents, which is like a 40-minute drive from where I live. And I think it's also meant that with the loud exhaust, it was appropriate for driving to my parents and back. But now that I get to kind of rev the car out more and sort of have a bit more fun with it, maybe the theory in my brain was the quieter one might sort of still meet that. So that's where it kind of got to.
Yeah, and, you know, as you say, quieter, it's not really quiet, and I'll get into that in a second. But, you know, it's This whole exhaust thing, Stephen, I remember when I did my exhaust, asking you all the questions and trying to find out the information. And it's not easy, is it? It's not easy to find out. It's trial and error. You know what I mean? And I think on the WhatsApp group, I think Mark, hello Mark, Mark, who's got the 997 Carrera 4S cab. I think he was asking that question on the WhatsApp group, right? I think he was trying to work out what exhaust. Yeah, and I think Rich from Carrera-licious answered, and I think you answered. And it really is a difficult thing, right? It is a difficult thing. And we know, I like that little saying I saw during the week, flat sixes really do sing, but how loud do you want them to sing? You know what I mean, Stephen? And what tone do you want them to sing? And I like we went for a quick drive to start the week with Marco and you and I, Marco. And, Marco had to go a little bit early, but we'll get into that. But, I liked your exhaust. And in me saying to you before we went on recording that it was softer, softer, but I did the thing where I had my window down. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to put my window up. And this is when when I was hot on your tail because Marco had a bit of an issue with his car. And I can hear it. It's clear. You know what I mean? It's still loud. It's still loud in my car because even with the windows up, sure, with the windows down, it's louder and I can hear it and whatever. But I still like the tone of that Acura. I do like the tone of the Acura. It's a pity that the valves were stuck open on the other one because it would have be good to hear it, on and off.
Yeah, and I was keen to get both of you to come for a ride and just give me an honest opinion riding in the car because I think that's like when you sort of say, like if you're in the kind of market or you're sort of thinking about sort of swapping your exhaust out, the tone of it outside is so different from the tone of like when you're driving it.
Yes.
Like most of them sound like your car sounds unreal on the outside. I really like the sound of your car from the outside, but I don't sort of ride in your car much, so I can't quite remember what it's like on the inside. And I think it's very different.
It is very different. And my main point was I didn't want droning inside the cabin.
Yep.
I think because I've been following you, Marco, a couple of times, I feel that, and I said this to you the other day, I feel like my exhaust sounds a bit soft. And it does sound really good I love the Fister. Don't get me wrong, I love the Fister. I think it's a great exhaust mod. It's a great exhaust mod. It's not a full exhaust system, it's an exhaust mod, right? And sure, it's like the PSE exhaust, it's just not switchable. That's basically what Gundo and Fister is, for those people who don't know.
Yep.
But I just think, Steve, I don't know, sometimes lately I've been driving it and I've been in the lower gears and it still sounds good, but I'm thinking, does it need just that little bit more? And maybe that's because of 5 years of ownership of this car. Do you know what I mean? I think about a lot of things when I look at the car now. Sometimes I'm happy and sometimes I'm sad. It's very weird. I have this mixed emotions at the moment, and maybe this is just the 5-year itch on the 997. I don't know.
Yeah.
But and then I think about those guys in the UK that we really like watching their channel, Friends Green Porsche.
Yes.
And they always spec Miltech, don't they? They always do the Miltech on the 996s and 997s.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think so.
So what is it about Miltech? And then I was reading up and I noticed a lot of other people like Miltech as well. But it's not an exhaust that always comes up. See, I'm not a fan of Soul Performance. I've said that before. No offense to the company. I'm just not a fan of the sound of it. I just don't think it sounds, and I know it's going to upset a lot of people, but it doesn't sound Porsche enough to me. It's something about the sound doesn't sound right. I think the Acura sounds right that you've got on, and even the other one, but something with Soul, it's something to do with the tone is just not right for me.
Never heard a Soul in real life, so I will not comment against that.
Speaking of Soul, I know James at Auto MH is a big fan of Soul, who's doing his, James is doing his 996 videos again. I just thought to give a little shout out to James because, in all respect to James, him and I, we don't really talk a lot anymore. We're both very busy with our own sort of things going on. But James has been a long-time supporter of the podcast on Patreon, Steve. He's been a supporter since day one and still is. So thank you, James, and I hope the videos are going well. If you haven't seen James's videos, just go over to Auto Amateur. He's doing his 996 at the moment. What's
he up to? He's working on his 996 again, is it?
Yeah. He's got the 996.
What happened to... Wasn't the engine? Was it something... I can't even remember now.
Something
broke after they'd finished it. So then that's where it stopped.
And I don't know the exact details because I haven't caught up on everything, but I believe he's getting a replacement, or I think that's what he's doing. I know he's doing the console
Sounds
delete.
expensive.
I noticed that on James's Instagram. He's doing the console delete, which or he's done the console delete, which I know Marco is doing on his car as well. It seems like a pretty popular mod at the moment, that console delete. I like it. I think it looks good.
Yep.
So exhaust.
Sorry, do you want to finish the exhaust thing? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. What's the final, what do you
I'll
think?
put the Acra back on. I'm not sure. Because I knew instantly that I would miss the kind of like the full-on noise of the old one, because the good thing about the old one was you didn't have to kind of rev hard, you didn't have to get to 4,000 to kind of get all this sort of, excitement kind of happening. It was kind of pretty cool. And it's got like, what I enjoyed about it was coming from like 993 and 964 was that it had little undertones of like air-cooled sound, like the kind of really gruff, grumbly sort of bassy sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I know the Acra doesn't have. Don't know yet, because the drive that we just did was the first sort of drive since putting it on, and we didn't really get to sort of drive a little bit more enthusiastically, and it was pretty short. So I need to kind of, just drive it a bit more and see.
But I felt that I was closer to your rear end on that drive because of the return part.
Yep.
And I could hear your exhaust, hear the Acra.
Yeah.
I like the tips. I like those titanium tips. I like how it looks.
On the inside, it's definitely much quieter, put it that way. But I think what the old one sort of maybe semi-masked was in a GT3, divorced of the kind of valve conversation, the higher up the rev range you go, the more it starts to kind of scream and howl. And I think the old one, you sort of lost a little bit of that transition, which was like, again, one of the nice things about it. Or maybe it was just so bloody loud that you kind of avoided, getting up to 7,000 revs.
Yeah, you didn't want to go there.
Oh, because it was so loud, like everything was just kind of going off in the car.
It's not good. It's not good that it makes you feel on edge though when you get into your car, like if you're feeling a bit stressed by the noise, But maybe it is the long drives, and this is a main consideration with the exhaust, isn't it? If you're doing long drives, everything you look for changes. You have to think about all of those things. If you're not doing little quick bursts.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe best of both worlds at the moment, I think, would probably still be somewhere in the middle. But let me keep driving on this for a second, then I'll
all right.
I'll come back to you.
So this Friday at 11 o'clock, you're not going to be at the garage getting it switched out again?
Nope.
Okay. Just checking.
Not yet.
So as we said, on the way back from our drive, Marco had, he didn't really have a serious issue, did he? He had kind of it could have been a serious issue. He had battery problems. Another thing that we always talk about, and you know what, I was thinking about it, and I was watching you guys chat about it, or reading you guys chat about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about batteries. If it was me, I'd just take it to Auto House and I'd just say, just give me the Vata battery that's the right one, that's not, for the car, doesn't have functions I don't need or whatever. You know what I mean? That's all I'd say. I just remember I had that silver one written down, whatever it was called, which I think that article that you posted mentioned the same one, F12 or whatever it was.
It was F18.
F18, yeah. Maybe. I think it mentioned the same one. And the Bosch and Vata are apparently the same battery. They're cross-branded. But Marco had a bit of a battery issue. So what is the outcome, though? If your battery goes flat, do you have to get it everything reset, or you don't?
I don't know. So that's the question at the moment. Oh, sorry, just a bit of background for everybody.
Yes,
so
please do.
Marco accidentally ran his battery flat before the drive the other day. How? So he charged it up, but knowing that his battery, which like his car's relatively new to him, so I don't think he knows how new or old or whatever it is. Like when you run a battery dead, you've got a pretty good chance of not being able to kind of revive it. Like you may have cycled it out basically. So he was smart enough that's why whenever we stopped, he opened his engine lid and put his little rag under there because he knew that he could get trapped, and he brought along a jump starter and all that sort of stuff. So he was fully prepared,
which he had to use.
Smart on his behalf. Sorry.
Which he had to use.
Yeah. So he knew that all of it was kind of possible, but it's still just a pain in the ass. So basically, we went one way, we stopped, and then when we had to start up again to kind of go back the other way, even though like we'd been on a 40-minute drive or whatever for him, he couldn't start up again. So his battery was basically screwed.
Yeah.
So he's in sort of battery replacement time. And then that started a conversation about, what battery do I fit? And whether he can do it himself, whether he can go to a battery store, find the right spec, Varta, Bosch, whatever. And then is it as simple as you unscrew it, you unplug it and then you kind of put it back in? And do you need to, like when you go to a dealership or even when you go to Auto House, and I don't know the answer to this, they tell you that they need to reprogram something, I think, or pair the battery to the car.
Yes.
Now, my mate with the GT3 recently did it himself. He's got the exact same car as me, and he swapped his battery out. And I asked him, and he literally didn't plug his car into like a iCar Soft or a Durometric or a Foxwell and all of that sort of stuff, like the home kind of gadget. And he was perfectly fine with it. But if you take it to a Porsche dealership or if you take it to Auto House, they tell you that they do something, but I don't actually understand what that is. That's a question.
I think, Steve, if you look at your manual, I think it says exactly the same thing in the manual, because I remember seeing it there, that it has to be reset by an authorized Porsche dealer or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember
I'm just
seeing
curious
it in
as
the
to
manual.
what that actually means.
And I haven't checked the page in the manual it's on, but I do remember seeing it. And, of course, Marco's got a 996 turbo, but we're guessing it'd be the same as the 997.
Could be.
I have actually seen it in the manual. I do vaguely remember it. See, for me, I appreciate people do things on their own and want to fit things. But if it was me, I would just, Marco, I just take it to Auto House and pay the extra $100 for them to fit it.
He's got skills though, so
yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's worked on lots of different cars. And just to round that story out too, like about a month ago, I picked up on a used iCar Soft Pro V2 for a Porsche off Gumtree for like $100. Some dude was moving overseas. So I just so happened to have it in the car, and I just kind of loved it at Marco and said, I think that you can do whatever this battery programming type thing is with it.
Okay.
So he's got that just in case he does need to kind of do something.
Did you use the iCar Soft thing? Did you plug it in and see if any faults come up on your car?
Yes, I did.
Did any faults come up?
Yeah, I had that, the valve thing I think kind of came up. I plugged it in because that's when I had that airbag warning light thing kind of come up.
But is it easy to translate the errors? That's the thing that I want to know, that it is?
Yes. Yeah, it gives you a little description. It isn't just like a sort of numbered code sort of thing.
But did the seatbelt issue come up? No, then.
No, it wasn't logged.
Right.
So that obviously kind of tells you that, like a PWIS system that the dealers and Auto House, etc., use is far more sophisticated, because I know when Auto House plugged in, it specifically said driver side seatbelt something or other. Whereas, like the little iCar Soft thing didn't. Oh, actually, just on that,
yes.
I discovered I finally went back and looked at all my receipts and stuff. I got it wrong again.
What's this? What we're talking about last week? Your seatbelt?
Yes, the seatbelt receptacle.
That was
needs
very
to be
expensive,
replaced.
you said. I'll quote you. Very expensive.
It's still expensive for what it is, like the part. But I said that I thought it had been replaced before, and I got it wrong.
Okay.
Last time it was the passenger side. This time is the driver's side. So that makes a lot more sense.
Okay. Well, that's good then.
Yep.
So is that part you're still waiting on that part though, aren't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, it takes a long time, doesn't it? Speaking of parts, I told you this the other day. I sent an email to Porsche Centre South Sydney. Is that what they call themselves?
Yes.
About the roof racks, the roof bars. Well, they don't call it that. They call it roof carrier, some long-winded name for that thing. It's not even called roof racks, roof carrier system or something like that. Yeah, they came back with a price, and it was $928, I think.
That's just for the rack that, how do I explain this, runs parallel with the gutters?
It's called roof transport system. Yeah, it's for the whole rack. So everything. Yeah. That
but
goes
it's
into the
crossbars?
gutters. Yeah, it comes with the crossbars and it comes with the plastic things and the locks. It's a whole system. It's called the roof transport system. So it comes, no box, of course, just the racks. But if anyone is looking at those for their car, they are still available for 996s and 997s. They are the same part for 996s and 997s. And if you have a Porsche Club membership, they cost you around $928, which another guy that listens to the podcast also said to me was about the same price. So I haven't decided, Then I watched an old video that Eat, Sleep, Drive guy had a video about where he fits them and shows you how to fit them. It should be pretty simple, but I'm not great at fitting things. So I watched that. The only thing that concerns me, Steve, is you've got to put the little bit of foam on your roof just so it doesn't scratch, and you've got to make sure it's covered properly so it doesn't scratch. Me, I'll get worried about scratches. In saying that, I have some more stone chips on the front of my car, even from the other drive the other day, which is a bit weird. Considering
what's going on with the PPF?
I don't know. No money.
You gonna do it?
I don't know. It's a lot of money. $3,000. Yep. I have to get another. I'll just touch on this very quickly, and I told Marco about it, and I may not have told you about it. I think you had gone to the loo or something, but
for the 20th time, yes.
The ignition on my car. I've got an issue with the ignition, and I don't know whether anyone's listening has had this same issue. And when you do a search for it, there's a few people who have had the issue, but not very many. And I know there's an issue with air-cooled cars, but this is with the 997. And this has been something I've kept a secret for a little while because it has actually been happening. It did actually happen just before I went overseas. And it's when you have the car's on, you turn the key off, the key's off, and then you pull the key out of the ignition and the car does not stop. The engine does not stop running.
Whoa, that's weird.
Yeah, so, and as I was saying to Marco, at Christmas when we went to buy a reindeer skin, because that's what you do in Australia at Christmas, you buy reindeer skins. When we went to buy a reindeer skin...
Santa Claus.
It was pouring down with rain. It was pouring. No, it's all organic, they say. It's all very well, they're all played music before they kill them and stuff like that, so it's all nice.
Yeah, cool, nice. It's a nice little satanic ritual you've got going on.
No. Anyway, it was pouring down with rain. I was in Alexandria. I was in a shithole of the street. It was awful. I almost swore then. Shithole of a street. And I almost got out of the car and the engine was still running because I couldn't hear it because of the rain, because the rain was pelting down. So that's happened a couple of times. That's the rare one. The other one that happens is, I turn the...
Sorry, so how do you turn it off then? You put the key back in?
You have to put the key back in and then turn it off, and then most times it'll turn off then. But you can literally pull the key. It's off position. You pull the key out, your engine's still running. There is some other dude on Renlist or something. Someone else has had a similar issue, and I think people said it's probably your ignition thing is gone, your ignition cylinder. And that can cause a lot of weird electrical things to go on with the car.
Boy.
Sometimes what will happen is I'll put the key in and then turn it, and it's like you have no battery. Like you turn it and nothing happens. And that's been happening more often since I've been back.
That sounds really disconcerting. Is that making you want to book it in?
I think I have to because I think the other guy said you don't want to be stranded somewhere. You know what I mean? The engine not stopping is a real worry. That when that first happened, and it happened just before I went overseas last time, 2 years ago, and I kind of like, it's just a one-off. It's nothing wrong with it. And I think it happened again, and it was like, okay, something's weird.
Not that I'm trying to worry you, but I'd find the more disconcerting thing is being able to start again. Like if you had gone somewhere and then you can't actually kind of go the other way.
Yes, and that's what I'm worried about. So I think I have to give Autohouse a call and get that booked in and see what it is. Hopefully it's nothing. Well, I say hopefully nothing too serious, Steve. But if it's that ignition cylinder or whatever it is that has to be replaced, then I'm sure it's not cheap.
Yeah, my tip for that, I think I mentioned it last time because, I was kind of rambling about parts being an issue, parts supply and stuff. Give them a call and talk to them about it beforehand so they're prepared.
I will. I mean, maybe they'll have to take it in so they can diagnose it, put it on the P-Wiz. Is that what you call it?
Yep.
P-Wiz?
P-Wiz, yep. I don't know why. That just makes me think of...
children peeing.
Yeah, or don't know. I'm not going to say it. Even I won't say it. If Ajmal was here, he would. Penis.
I could tell the story when we were at the expo in Shanghai in 2010 and how a mother let her child take a whiz, and it was not very nice. Anyway, right. I won't tell that story. Steve, I got a couple. Let's get through a couple of things because I haven't mentioned owner stories this week. If you haven't listened to owner stories, I know Steve hasn't. It's number 66. It's Chris from Tucson in Arizona. I'm not going to give away too much in these little intros on every episode now because I give away too much.
You say it all the time.
Yeah, I know, but this time I'm not going to. So it's Chris is from Tucson. Go and follow Chris. His Insta is at @C__Klaus. Klaus. Go and have a look at his car. He's got racks, Steve. He's got a box. Chris is really talented because he sent me a message a while ago, and I cancelled on it a few times just to scheduling issues I had over Christmas. But he's a young Porsche owner. He got his first Porsche under 30. I think he's just turned 30 now. He installed the PCCM Plus himself. He bought it from Suncoast and installed it. So that's worth a listen to hear that story.
Oh, okay.
He installed it. He is an engineer. But he's got a 911 Carrera. It's a 4S. It's a 996. He wanted the all-wheel drive. It's Arctic silver, great color. It's black inside. He's got the roof box. He's got the Porsche racks. He drives it all the time. If you look at his Instagram, Steve, he's out in the snow. One of the photos he posted with the box on in the snow looks very, very cool.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I've seen that picture.
Yeah. Yep. So I've had a few owners with boxes. We've had a few roof box people, so it's been cool. We've had Lorenzo and we've had Chris. But basically, he was hunting for a manual. He wanted a 4S. He was hunting for a while. This is a couple of years ago now. And he found one in his local area in Tucson. The guy that owned it was fastidious. He was the original owner. The car was immaculate, had never been driven in the rain. No one had ever sat in the back. This was all the selling points. He had the seat bolsters reupholstered in genuine Porsche leather, which cost him about $7,000.
Yo.
So the car, and Chris pointed out that he used to clean his air conditioning vents, used to clean them out annually with Windex and a small paintbrush. He used to clean all these vents out and stuff. So he's quite fastidious. So Chris has got the car, and he's driving it in the snow. He's putting the box on, and he's putting miles on it. I think he said he put 30. I think he's put like 30-odd thousand miles since he's had the car in the last few years. Yep. So he's really driving it. So
it's well driven.
Yeah, it's well driven. It's a good story. Like I said, a younger Porsche owner. And we're going to talk about age of Porsche owners, and we're going to talk about profiling Porsche owners in a second. Not that we're any experts, but we're going to talk about that. So I thought that was a good one to lead into what we're going to talk about. But like I said, listen to Chris's story, PorscheCooled Owner Stories number 66, and give him a follow and tell him you heard his story on PorscheCooled and Chris's Instagram. One more time because I've even forgotten it. At @C__, very important, _Klaus, Klaus. Steve, recommendation.
Go.
You want me to go first? Okay. Mine might be a little bit long. If you don't have one, mine's probably a little bit long, but I know you have. I thought you said you did have one. I just want to do it. You forgot it?
That's how prepared I am for all of this. Yep.
Well, mine is, and next week I'm going to do the same for another event in the UK, but my recommendation is a Porsche event. We don't talk about other people's events that often, but the next couple of weeks we will. And this one is Stuart. And Stuart was on PorscheCooled Owner Stories number 40, Steve. Stuart's from Melbourne. Hi, Stuart. Stuart's got an 85 Carrera 3.2 coupe in blue. I'm trying to remember the color. Iris blue, I think. Iris blue. I didn't write that down, but I'm pretty sure it's Iris blue, Stuart. I hope I got that right. So Stuart sent me an email about the Luftwasser event that he's behind. And Luftwasser is at the start of April. He's invited us to go along, Steve. You can buy your tickets. You can buy the tickets at Eventbrite if you click on the link. I'll put the link in the description of this podcast so people can go from that link and see all about it. But it's held over 3 days, Steve, in the Albury-Wodonga region in Victoria.
Yep. So what's that? Is that 9? No, not 9 hours. It's probably about 7 for us.
Yeah. You want to do it?
Yeah.
Are we doing it?
No.
We're not doing it.
Are you going to...
Can you get a pass?
Somebody has to beg...
Can you get a 3-day pass?
Somebody has to beg my my family for... Well, that's like a platinum pass, which I think would be very hard to get.
3-day pass.
Yeah, that's platinum. That's like...
Platinum pass.
That's quite hard.
Let me just read the spiel. Let me read the write-up that It's on Eventbrite. Like I said, Stuart's event. It's Luftwasser. It's for Porsche enthusiasts. It was held in 2021. It was a huge success. It's in the Albury-Wodonga area, which is the border, right, Steve? I couldn't get my geography right. And it's all
Border
about
New South Wales and Victoria.
Correct. Yeah. And it's all about the Porsche sports car community. 356s, 992s, Porsche racing cars will all be there. And it's going to be held from April the 2nd to April the 4th. Open to all models of Porsche sports cars, Steve. So you cannot drive your Macan. It's not allowed. No Cayennes, no Macans, no Panameras, no Taycans. Luftwasser is packed with 3 days of low-cost, low-key activities.
Does it literally say that?
Yes, it does.
Cool. I like that. That's really good.
No offense to Cayenne, Macans, Panameras, or Taycans.
No, plenty of offense. Big offense. Be offended. So
it's jam-packed. I mean, it's jam-packed. I mean, this is a great recommendation. And, I would like to go with it, but I can't, it's I don't know if I can. April the 2nd. I probably will still be here. Town? I probably will still be here. I'm not sure. Is that Easter? It must be just before Easter, I think.
Maybe.
So early arrivals, there's a pre-event street party in Dean Street, Albury on the Friday night. Saturday morning, you can go and see a display of around 200 Porsches in Norell, I think it's called, Norell Park, Albury. So you can go and see that, including 356s, iconic 911, Carreras and GTs, 930 turbos, transaxles, and latest 992s. Coffee and food and drinks available. Public are welcome to that one. Then there's a car display. There's a drive to a mystery destination before returning to the base for a gala dinner. And then Sunday sees the car's journey to, wow, these words, Banawafa Raceway, is that what you call it, for some spirited track action. Spectators welcome. And then Monday's drive to Beechworth concludes the event with a fantastic lunch at Weathercraft Wines. So if you want to go and check out that event, you can go to Eventbrite. Like I said, I'll put the link in the description of the podcast. Otherwise, you can send an email, and this is on Eventbrite, so I don't think it's private, luftwasseraustralia@gmail.com, and then go over to their Instagram, Steve. Their Instagram is at Luftwasser, double-S, _ Australia. That's at Luftwasser _ Australia. I'll put it in the description. I hope it goes well, Stuart. Thanks for reaching out, and I hope you guys, I hope a lot of people in Australia who are listening can actually go to it and support a really good Porsche enthusiast event. Steve?
That word, Luftwasser, isn't that very, very, very close to Luftwaffe, which is bad connotations?
Is it? What's Luftwasser? Luftwaffe?
Isn't that in Hogan's Heroes and all that sort of stuff?
I don't know, mate. I'll have to look up that one later.
Just move on.
Everyone knows that Wasser. Everyone knows that Wasser means wet. No, it means water. Air and water. Air and water. Steve, recommendation?
Rupes. I borrowed my uncle's Rupes polisher because I don't have one, and when I did the paint correction on my car, I used a puny little flex thing, blah, blah, blah. I've spoken about ad nauseum, but I started the correction on my wife's Macan, and this time around I borrowed my uncle's larger, I think it takes a 6-inch Rupes pad. It's the Bigfoot Mark III, I think it is, and it is noticeably better and more useful, although I still don't know how to use it properly. So yes, if you're kind of getting into all this car detailing, malarkey, and paint correction, it is noticeably good.
That's good.
I haven't. Yeah,
it's expensive though,
to compare it to. Yeah, they are. Like I haven't used sort of like I know there are a lot cheaper ones, and I've not used them, so I can't kind of give you a comparison, but I can see why this is good, particularly if you're going to wind up doing multiple cars and stuff like that.
Right. Sounds good.
Don't ask me how the correction on the Macan is going yet. Like I've only done the first step, and I'm kind of getting used to using this machine, blah, blah, blah. I can't take the car off the road for like 5 straight days, so I have to kind of stagger the steps.
I can't believe you started it. Such a big job.
I know.
I always think the Macan is small. I always think it's a small car. And then yesterday in Bunnings in the hardware store here, we saw one, turbo. Very dirty one though, not like yours, not sparkling. They look so big here. I don't understand how everything looks so big. They don't look
Yeah,
big
you
in
laughed at me
Bahrain.
last podcast. I feel like it's a big
It is
kind
big.
of, you know,
It is
it's
big.
wide.
Yeah, no,
but-
it's big. It's cool though. I'm still tempted to. I wouldn't mind getting one, but that's another story for another day. Hey,
do it.
I want to do a shout out for a new Patreon member, for Brennan. Brennan, hello. Yep. Brennan's going to be on an owner stories in a couple of weeks. Brennan's got a really good story, and I'm definitely not going to give it away. But he's got 2 air-cooled 911s, and there's a couple of really good stories behind it. And like I said, I'm not going to give it away because it's coming up on owner stories, and it's going to be a really, really good one. So I'm recording that shortly, and Brennan will be coming up. But thank you, Brennan, for supporting us on PorscheCooled. Any of you other guys who want to support us, I know a lot of people have been leaving PorscheCooled, but anyone else that wants to support us, you just go to PorscheCooled. No, what do you go to, Steve? Patreon.com/PorscheCooled. And you can join for as little as $2 per month. That's US dollars, of course. All right, Steve.
Yep.
We're going to get into this. But I like to, we usually stagger this, but I'm going to go straight into it because I just want to read out a few reviews or the titles of a few reviews, just because people, like I say, go to the effort to write these reviews and give us a star rating. Yesterday we were at, not that I'm competitive, of course, to everyone else out there, but we're number 36 in the US yesterday. Number 36. You didn't believe me last week when I said in the 30s, and we're in the 30s, Steve, the 30s. 4 new reviews this week, and that's the reason why we're up in the charts. People are leaving reviews and leaving star ratings, and it really does get us noticed. Steve, the first one, not in any order of when they were placed, though. It's just, this is the first one. Good Porsche-orientated conversation. 2 911 owning friends in weekly chat about Porsches, plus interesting informal interviews with other owners. It is mostly 911 orientated with a sprinkling of other models. Always an enjoyable listen. Someone actually said, and that's from Forestiel, United States of America. Thanks for leaving that review. Just on that point, Steve, I have had that said to me a lot of times, that we don't talk enough about Boxsters and Caymans and other models.
You've said that many times. I've never owned one, so I can't really talk about it.
Yeah,
sorry.
and my reasoning for that is owner stories is what really that is all about. We don't. I guess we talk about 997s a lot because we know about 997s and 996s because you probably researched the 996. I don't know a lot about transaxles or Boxsters, but that's why we have owner stories, and that's why we have a lot of variety there. So that's my reasoning anyway.
Yeah, I'm just scared to say stuff out loud about things that I have no proper experience of. And I've driven them, but I've just never owned a Cayman or a Boxster. I'd love to have one. I would absolutely love to kind of own one, but I just haven't ever gone
likes
there.
to be precise. I'm not that fussed.
I don't like to open my mouth.
Steve
basically.
likes to be correct. I just open my mouth and upset people all the time lately, so I don't know what's going on. Best 2 days of the week, Steve. Best 2 days of the week. A must for any Porsche enthusiast. A bi-weekly, thoughtful,
Saturday and
insightful,
Sunday?
and enthusiastic glimpse into the magic of the Porsche brand. I'm not going to read it all out.
Cool.
Michael is very thoughtful in his approach to his owner story interviews. He always hits the nail on the head with the right questions. Thank you so much. And the listeners are hoping he asks. Extremely well done. Thank you. And Steve, for all your hard work and dedication. That's from Alan. I do know who Alan is, so thank you, Alan. Alan's a supporter. Next one, informative, fun, and interesting. Very relaxed podcast with great blend of owner stories and chit-chat. Highly recommended. That's from Benny.
QR codes.
PB. That's from Benny and Lukey in Brisbane, Australia. Thanks so much. And then the last one, just brilliant. Oh, this one's a bit about me, mate, so sorry. Michael deserves a real commendation. Michael deserves a real commendation for uniting Porsche drivers around the world in an informative yet entertaining podcast. I look forward to every new episode, and until I found PorscheCooled, I never fully appreciated how many more of us Porsche-struck enthusiasts there are out there. We are a strange breed. We're going to talk about that shortly. But in the podcast, we have a home for our obsession for an hour every week. That's from Dr. Honest Review, Australia. Thanks so much for that. Thank you for the people who have taken the time to write a review. I know we all live busy lives. Steve, based on that last little bit, we are a strange breed. Let's roll into the topic that we really don't know much about, but we're going to try it anyway.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Are we a strange breed? Do people think Porsche owners are a strange breed? What is, this typical Porsche owner?
So.
And as a lead-in, right? As a lead-in, Porsche sales are at record levels. Everyone would have seen that article that's been around every site this week that Porsche's pushed out. And of course, it's at every level, at high levels, because Taycan is going crazy, SUVs are going crazy, cars are going crazy, right? And then the comment you said about smoking tire, or we talked about smoking tire. Do you want to lead in with that?
Well, you mentioned it.
Yeah,
you mentioned that.
I forget everything.
I think it was a couple of podcasts ago. You mentioned the one where he had Doug DeMuro on, who I'm sort of indifferent about Doug DeMuro, but whatever. So I finally listened to it yesterday or the day before, and there was a little section in there. He used to work for Porsche North America, I'm assuming in
that's right,
marketing or PR or something like that. And he just sort of went on a little rant, which I'll say, like, I sort of semi-agree with, like, about how he kind of thinks that the culture and the ownership sort of thing has started to skew. Like, there's a fixation on paint to sample and deviated stitching, and he sort of said that it's a bit of a pity because it used to be more about like the driving and the engineering, and people used to kind of be less cars and coffee and more sort of driving experience oriented. And just, I think he was basically sort of saying he's a bit sick and tired of like everybody kind of bragging about like their sort of individual color and that sort of thing. So it was interesting. I just kind of went, like I kind of sort of a little bit agree with that, where it seems like it's bragging rights about how unique your car is or whatever else, or how rare it is and all that type of stuff, which is, they were sort of saying that used to be a bit of a Ferrari kind of owner trait, and it had sort of seeped into Porsche culture.
I know they always say, I think it's Matt Farah says it, doesn't he? I think a lot of people say it. Maybe it's, I don't think it's Spike. Someone says it all the time, but you go to a Cars and Coffee, Porsche Cars and Coffee or Cars and Coffee, and there's always a GT3, and it's always in PTS colors, and there's like not just one, there's two, there's three, right? And I think you have to see that through US eyes or through European eyes. And of course in the US, huge Porsche market, Europe, huge Porsche market, you're going to see more of those cars because there's more on the road, right? There's more in your area. Australia is a little bit different, and New Zealand is a little bit different, because it's not as saturated. Those cars still are, let's be honest, Steve, they're still pretty rare. You go to an Autohouse, Cars and Coffee, you might see one GT3 RS. Do you know what I mean though? You go to Autohouse or whatever, there's a couple of, there's one GT3 RS, there's, obviously a few GT3s and stuff like that. But, it's a little bit rarer in countries like Australia. And I think, what was your point? I've lost the train of thought now. You just said it's changed. The whole thing has changed, you think? Yeah,
well, that was his point in terms of it's kind of going towards sort of like the less about the driving and more about maybe sort of like, the spec of your car and the way that it looks and the exclusivity of it and that type of thing.
And sure, that's the case with new owners, and that's the case with, I guess, let's call it, I don't know if it's top tier, but with a limited number of owners, that is obviously the case when you're buying new cars, right? Mm-hmm. But, it's not about, I don't know how to lead into this. It's not about sales numbers. It's not about figures and stuff with this, because the more and more owners I speak to on owner stories, the more the common thread, right? The common thread, and you would have seen that, you would have heard this as well, and other people would have heard this as well, Porsche ownership, for the people that I've spoken to, the 66 people now, it's about passion, it's about connecting with other people in the Porsche community, right? It's the thrill of driving your dream car. Not necessarily always fast, not necessarily always on the track, but just the thrill of driving it, right? And it's about either hard work, it's about setting a goal at a young age and getting there. It's not always about the poster on the wall. As I said to you earlier, a lot of people remember fondly, it's always the whale tail. It's always not necessarily the turbo, but it's the whale tail, right? And it's not about showing off, but it's about the feeling that you have inside yourself, that you feel, I don't know, you feel satisfied. You know what I mean? You feel that you've, I don't know if necessarily if you've made it, right? But you've made a promise to yourself. You said you would get a Porsche, and it could be 2 years later, it could be 15 years later, it could be 20 years later, you get a Porsche, and it's about that enjoyment when you first sit in that car, Steve, as you've heard it many times before. You sit in that car and you drive away and you think, wow, I've got a 911. And I guess that's the history of the brand, right? That's the history of the brand sinking into.
So how are those things, I've just put it to you, this is completely unprepared. I think we're both kind of scrambling a tiny bit. How do you think that is different from like, BMW, or if you want to be more specific, like BMW or AMG or Ferrari, like those things I would have thought are fairly, the things that you just pointed out would be kind of common with those drivers, owners, that group of kind of people too.
Did you see the article, the link I just sent you? And it's, I don't know how credible this is, menswearstyle.co.uk.
I did read that.
And it's got the different brands. It's got the different brands. And this is what it says. It says BMW enthusiasts are people who love the performance of their cars, not unlike Porsches. They drive for the enjoyment of it, and they love nothing more than hitting the top speed in their luxury car, driving around the curve and feeling the handling they have at their fingertips. They are not driving their BMW. They're not driving their BMW because of how it looks. They're driving it because they love the feeling of driving it. You wouldn't drive a BMW for how it looks, let's be honest, because a lot of them are not very, very attractive. I'm sorry, they're not.
The old ones are, but
they're not. The old ones are.
I just kind of go, sorry, but that article, I just kind of go, complete crock of shit. But somebody's trying to make up stuff.
Steve, Mercedes-Benz. Someone who drives a Mercedes-Benz will tend to be someone who is meticulous and has an eye for detail. They tend to worry far less about performance and speed and more about comfort and relaxation. It's
complete bollocks.
That's true.
No, complete bollocks. You think that's true? Do you honestly think that's true?
I
just kind of go, that's just rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Yeah. Where is the insight, or how is that sort of, how would anybody sort of qualify drawing those sort of generalizations, I guess?
Let's go to Audi, because I was an ex-Audi owner, so are you. Being an Audi owner is like being a member of an exclusive club that only Audi owners know about. You are not told about this club before you get the Audi. You might simply be looking online at a personal car lease options to see what your next option is. See an Audi and suddenly you're in the owners club instead. You will now be expected to greet other Audi owners as they only appreciate what a special car you both now have.
Bullshit. I probably should qualify my disdain for that type of stuff. So like I've worked in advertising for quite a long time, and I'm on the creative side. And when you have my job, you're often given like a written brief. Whenever you're kind of given a brief, it's kind of got like background, and they always sort of categorize like your target market.
Yes.
And they put that type of information into brief, because you need to kind of work out who you're actually kind of targeting and talking to.
So you throw the brief out. If they wrote this, you'd go, that's rubbish. That's not true.
Well, I'm used to kind of questioning, like, it's like, how on earth did you kind of go, hey, it's a secret men's club because nobody's ever heard about it before? That's just like, that's crap.
Can I read the Porsche part of this article?
Yeah.
Because I want to get onto another article that I happened to write a blog post for Drive Tribe when I was doing it. So Porsche, a Porsche lover is someone who is or wants to be successful. They are often quite intellectual car owners who tend to like to do fixes and improvements to their own car. A Porsche owner loves the sex appeal his car gives him and finds nothing better than getting a cheeky glance as they drive down the street. They will celebrate their brand's racing tradition and will usually try to take the car out to quiet roads as much as they can to feel the power and acceleration their car has to offer. Steve?
That just makes me want to spew. I don't know. I'm so cynical, like, because it's partly my job to question that type of stuff. Like, like it'd probably be most interesting to kind of get like a proper strategist, like a planner to kind of dissect that type of stuff. But that to me reeks of just somebody making up a whole bunch of kind of stuff. Like I didn't really find much of that differentiated as well.
Yeah.
Like,
and the Drive Tribe article, right? And that was based on something that I wrote it. It was based on something that I'd seen and just wrote the article when I was doing Drive Tribe, right? A long time ago now.
Yep. It's going under too, isn't it?
Is it? Probably.
Drive Tribe, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, they're putting a pin on it.
Right. This was, you worked in advertising for a long time. I did a business degree which had a huge marketing component, right?
Yeah.
So these sort of things also annoy me because it just reminds me of the textbooks. It reminds me of what you had to study for the exam and the essays that you have to write, the reports. So it kind of annoys me a bit. But this is an old study, right? And we just want to talk about it, touch on it, and just see if it's still a bit relevant. But it was a request of Porsche AG's new chairman of Porsche America. It was done quite a few years ago. I can't remember what year it was done in, actually. Psychographics, Steve, is that what you call it? Study of personality, values, attitudes, and lifestyles. Segmenting the market based on these traits provide a clear view of your target market, like what you were saying. Basically, knowing you're making the right, Steve's laughing, basically know you're making the right product and targeting your communications for this market and their values lifestyle. I feel like I'm writing an essay. Anyway, the report at the time said the typical owner is 40-something male, college graduate, earning over $200,000 per year. I read an article recently, this morning, it said you had to earn over $600,000 a year. This is US. I would assume that this may have now changed. This report was completed, this is my words, right? This was reported completed in around 1995. So it's really old, right? You're at Web 1.0, early, mobile phone use is only new, and Porsche hadn't really moved into the luxury SUV market until 2003. So the market segments, as I said in the article, may have changed. It was, internal and external changes have happened in the world, right? Macro and micro. So they identified these 5 types, Steve, which you know. And the first one, I hate these names. Excuse the names, I hate them. The first one was called Top Guns. And that was 27%. That was the top. And Top Guns were described as driven and ambitious. Power and control are important. They expect to be noticed. Let's just go through all of them, and then we come back with our comments. Elitists, 24%. Old money. Car is just a car. The car is not an extension of personality. Proud patrons, which is what we are, I guess. Ownership is an end in itself. Car is a trophy for hard work. I don't know about trophy. Are these the Porsche purists, is what I said in the article. Bon vivants, a person who devotes themselves, the definition of a bon vivant is a person who devotes themselves to a sociable and luxurious lifestyle, right? 17%. So they say jet setter, thrill seeker, car heightens their excitement, passionate about life, etc. Fantasists, car is a means to escape. They're not interested in impressing others, could feel guilty about owning one. Now, I look at this now, and I hadn't read it for a while, Steve, and I'll tell you what I think. I think that we could be all a little bit of all of these, right? It's sort of merged. None of them. No, but I think it's a bit merged. No, if you look at not the names, right, but the descriptions. Sure. The descriptions, right? Except for the Top Gun. But, some of, I'm guessing there's a lot of Porsche owners who are a mixture of a few of these things. It's more diverse. It's not so, this is your group, this is what you are, You're a stockbroker, you buy an 80s turbo. It's not like going back to the 80s. You know what I mean? It's not that sort of thing.
It doesn't work like that yet.
I mean, this is showing its age. I don't know what the latest reports are that come out of Porsche. I know you've had something to do with it years ago, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very hard for me to kind of talk about it because it's close to, like I said, my profession and what I sort of do for a living. So as everybody can tell, I'm just highly kind of cynical of some of this sort of stuff and the way that it's written particularly. I'm guessing that there might be some people that were listening to you read out that sort of, that again is sort of like part of a brief to
it makes you cringe, outline. Though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I'm hoping that everybody else kind of out there is cringing too, because you just kind of go, what the fuck does any of that mean? And how does that, I don't think people like to be put in a box. Admittedly, when you do my job, you actually do have to kind of somehow be categorized, because in order for people to work out how to talk to you honestly and properly and all of that sort of stuff, you do actually have to understand your audience. So that's fair. It's just that I hate how it's kind of written.
Okay.
And I don't know.
It's very old, though. It is very old.
It is very old. Like a little, you reminded me of a little side story. Ages and ages ago, I worked on the Jaguar account.
Yes.
And this is in Australia. And I remember we had to kind of do some groups, same thing, research groups.
Yep.
So in that particular instance, you have to kind of
focus groups.
You've got to recruit. You've got to recruit people to kind of ask them questions to try to find out what people really think about it.
Yeah.
But the thing that I'd sort of found incredulous, and I was saying this to my strategy friends, who are the people that hold these groups, is So you're trying to find people that earn, I think it was more than 400 Aussie a year,
Right.
to get their opinion on what they think about Jag and Jag ownership, or like if you're in the market to kind of buy that sort of car. It's like,
Right.
what kind of person who owns $400,000 a year is going to come to this little room, get paid $80 to do this group and eat those horrible little sandwiches and dried up cut fruit? Like, how can you realistically sort of take what that person says and believe that they're realistic to the whole kind of, Jag ownership sort of thing? Like, that's a very specific person, and then you're going to use what they say in that like 1 hour group to kind of represent like the whole sort of thing. And that's my problem with this type of stuff. Sorry, I'm ranting, but
no, I agree.
so, yeah.
I agree. I mean, obviously now we share so much data, and these companies can find out our information
Everything
and what we
about
think
you.
in different ways, right? From the Instagram posts we like, et cetera, et cetera. But here's another one, and this was, I think this was, and I'm going to quote it, I think it was from Porsche Colorado. It was on their site. I don't know how I came across this just before.
Yep.
The Porsche brand has been the focus of some of that research. It was about, like any retail market, the automotive world has seemingly endless amounts of research done year after year. Porsche has been a part of that and has been put together to see what the average age of Porsche owners and buyers is. The answer isn't one clear number. It's very written badly, but actually varies depending on the model. Buyers of the fan favorite Porsche 911 model are often between 46 and 65 years.
That's probably right. Do you reckon
Porsche
that's right?
Boxster, probably about right. On the average age being 52. I think this is new cars though. I think this is what I want to come back to. The Porsche Boxster, on the other hand, is often bought by persons who are 47 years of age or fall between 36 and 55 years of age.
Yeah.
They don't mention women in that. I think they're talking about new cars, and I think the demographic on new cars is completely different because, yes, you'd have to be to buy a new 911 here. As we know, a 911 Carrera S, I spec one out the other night in the way that I would buy it. It was $385,000, Steve.
Wow.
$365,000. Minimal options, which still were like 30 grand or something because of the cost of the options. And on the road, it was about 365,000. So that's a lot, right? That's a big commitment.
Yeah,
that's a big commitment. And if you're getting finance, then you're going to be in trouble for a long time. So
who doesn't finance?
You need a lot of money. I don't like to finance. So I guess for new models, that's probably right. I mean, I think things are different now. And I think what I was saying to you before, we're talking about how, most people experience other brands before they get into Porsche, right? And I'm going back to owner stories. And like I said to you before, I had some keywords that I was talking about, right? And from owner stories, it's always the same sort of thing. It's passionate, not necessarily rich, right? People who love cars, owners who have experienced other brands, a lot of the time being BMW or Audi, right? Or Merc, but normally BMW and Audi. Porsche is not usually their first car, except for Rich from Owner Stories.
You mean sports car?
Yeah, this first car. Yeah.
I thought you meant riches and rich people. But you mean
no, Rich from Owner Stories at Carrera. Hi, Rich. He was, he paid it off and he paid his father back and all of that, but he got a 944 for his 16th birthday. So Porsche is not usually your first car. It's usually, like we said, a reward for hard work. It's a special car. But you know what? Has it changed now? Because, a lot of people are entering the Porsche world through 996s and 997s and Boxsters, or they have. Has this changed the demographic, Steve? Has that made a big impact on the demographic? Or is it, and this is a question I want to ask you, and you already know what the question is, in the 2000s, right, in the early 2000s, it was about cheap air-cooled, right? But Porsche didn't have the exposure that it has now due to GT cars and everything. It wasn't as popular.
Yeah.
So
it was a much smaller group in terms of the number of people that owned it, and it was sort of definitely not as broad. It was a much more focused kind of group of people. And I don't know, like let's try to take out all the kind of stupid marketing sort of strategic type sort of thing about it and just, see what your impression of it is. I feel like it has changed. Because back in those days, it was definitely kind of car enthusiasts. I don't think Well, I'm not sort of saying that there weren't people that just, kind of came into money and just sort of wanted to be cool, so therefore went and bought a Porsche. But I think back in those days, they were probably like definitely really, really into kind of cars. We were sort of debating this before we started recording as to, and even my uncle sort of said it to me, like, back in those days, do you think you had to kind of be wealthy to kind of get into your first Porsche, like you used, like I'm not talking just into the brand, not a new one? I don't think you had to be as wealthy. I keep sort of saying it, which is, like I got in when I could and I tipped every single last penny that I had. I was a young guy. I wasn't sort of one of those where I had my family, schooled them and all of that sort of stuff and then waited for that moment. I got in before I did all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I still feel, massive generalization, just my opinion, that it's harder to get into it now than it was. Is it right?
Harder to get into new ones, I think.
Harder to get into, but even the old ones are sort of like relatively expensive, don't you think?
I mean, I remember in '02 seeing Porsche Willoughby and standing there when I lived nearby, going for a walk with Tasha and looking and seeing Carrera 4S and thinking, I didn't know how I could possibly get one of those. And I think at the time they were 225,000 or 230,000, right?
Yeah, sorry, but that's different from like you kind of maybe trawling. Back in those days, there's no such thing as car sales. You would be looking in the paper, right? You'd literally be trawling through the classifieds. This is me. And then I'm kind of opening up the paper and kind of going, okay, like, a 964 for 60 grand or like a G series would have been like 40 or something. It's like, that's doable. Like, like a new kind of hot hatch type thing would have been about maybe 25 plus, maybe to about 35. So you kind of went, okay, so if I kind of save up like another 10 grand, I'll probably get myself into a old Porsche as opposed to getting into a new, performance-y car.
Easier entry.
Whereas I reckon, if you're in that sort of boat right now where you're kind of going, you're into a new GTI, whatever, maybe a BMW of sorts or whatever else. If you're in that market, but then you're kind of going, actually, no, I'd much rather be in a 911 or, sort of like a Cayman S or something like that. I reckon the leap between those two things is harder. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I think that it is.
I think
that's what changes like the group of how you sort of look at the owners as well. Like I actually think it has become maybe a bit more elitist.
Really? I don't know. More elitist? I don't know.
To a degree. I don't mean it. I don't know. I think it's not meant to sound in a snobby way, but just sort of feel like because it's harder, like I still rue the fact that I wish that people that just really, really loved cars, that it would be easier for them to kind of get into it, because then that would sort of negate some of that stuff that Doug DeMuro was talking about, where people just keep banging on about deviated stitching and paint to sample. And it was sort of a little bit more grassroots.
Yeah, but I think that there are those people, because the people who love cars, they're getting into the cheaper end, like us, like me, right? Yep. Like people who bought 996s. And let's be honest, you could have got a 996 in Australia not long ago for 39 grand. They were there, and it wasn't that long ago. You know what I mean? So you can get in there. The new side of the car is a different thing. It's like watches and cars. It's like you've got the passion. Even if you have the money, you can't do it. Or maybe you can't get that money because the prices are insane, like the price I just quoted. You know what I mean? Like 400, 500,000 for a GT3. It's a lot of money. Sure. It's a lot of money, especially in Australia where, some people have houses who, not most people now, the house prices have gone crazy, but some people still live in houses that are sub $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of people. So, 500,000 for a car is a big investment. And then also people are scared of the ownership cost, the cost of servicing, which we know is not as scary, but based on
it's still scary.
But it can be scary when you get a big bill, and it's a big bill. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we laugh about it, but we have the ability to pay for it. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of look at that side of it as well. But I don't know if it's elite. I think the new side of it is like watches and stuff like that, Steve. It has become a little bit like that, where you got the passion and you just can't do it. And I think that's sad. But I don't know. I mean, demand, right? When the demand becomes so big, everything changes. But buying
I was sort of saying this to you. Like I don't in the big bad sort of reality that is, like the world, like I don't necessarily blame Porsche as a brand, because it's a business. Like, like they're trying to sell cars and they're trying to make money. They've got shareholders, all that sort of stuff. So the way that it works is that rather than just speaking to like the core group of sort of driving enthusiasts, they speak to young people, they speak to women, they speak to, like the Chinese or the Indian or the Russian market or whatever it is, like the growing markets. And they try to sell as many cars as they can. And what that does is that, like, to somebody like me, kind of semi-dilutes the brand, because I kind of hanker for, when people weren't driving it just for the prestige or the status of it. Like, I kind of like the notion of, like the people are more enthusiastic about it. But that's the way they kind of grow the company, and they make more money, and they can fund the new GT cars and all of that sort of stuff. So, like, you do understand that that's just the way that, the world works. It's just funny how it just sort of turns like that.
Yeah, but we have to applaud Porsche for bringing out the Cayenne and the Macan and all those cars, because it saved the company, right? And the company's still around, and it could have been worse. You know what I mean? It could have been much worse. So they did actually, make a good decision there.
Yeah, and then credit to them is that they didn't stop making cars that meet, what we kind of want. Like, there are GT cars, and there are Carrera T's, and there are
manuals,
really good kind of Caymans and stuff. Like, they still,
and no diesels.
They still hold true. Well, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they still hold true to their kind of heritage, which is really well engineered cars for driving enthusiasts and all of that sort of stuff. It's just that there are also other cars that aren't quite so purposeful and specific to that particular task.
Yeah. But I read these out to you earlier, Steve, and these are just things I pulled off different articles and different forums and stuff. And I thought some of them were quite true. Let me know what you think, if you think they're true. Porsche ownership is for enthusiasts. This is just people talking about a lot of people who own Porsche. Porsche ownership is for enthusiasts. It's for people who enjoy the ride regardless of the price tag.
Not sure. I don't, like, in this day and age, maybe not.
Porsche owners are not all the same. I agree. We're a diverse group of people whose mutual affection for a cool little German sports car happens to put us on common ground. I think that's a really good statement. No, I think it's quite a good one. We're not all, you realize the more and more people we speak to, reach out to, but it is that commonality of the 911, of the Porsche, of the brand. I don't know. I think that's pretty good, that one. Purchasing a sports car like a 911 is something many people make as a silent promise to themselves. You didn't like that one, did you?
No, what I took from that is that is that it can be quite a selfish kind of
driving alone
decision.
Yeah.
No, like sort of, but I don't know if that's sort of specific to Porsche. I reckon that's any sports car, where you kind of go, hey, I really, really, like, my dream is to kind of get like a 911 or a Ferrari or a M3 or whatever, and you save and save and you work really hard, and then you kind of get there. That generally is quite a sort of specific thing. You're not doing that for necessarily the greater good of anything. Like, that really is just something that it's a very personal kind of goal.
True. I think this next one is pretty relevant, though, about most Porsche owners. I love them for the lines, the sound, the smell, the ingenuity, and the marvelous engineering, the nostalgia, the driving feel, the racing pedigree.
Yep.
I think that's a good way to explain, a Porsche owner, don't you think?
What attracts people to the brand.
Yeah, what attracts people to the brand, yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, again, like, credit to Porsche is that it's got amazing motorsport heritage, which not everybody kind of has. Like, there are things like BMW, AM cars, Jag and Lotus have some of that kind of heritage, but nobody's been smart enough to kind of strike the balance of racing and, racing in Le Mans or, having their own kind of Carrera Cup and all of that sort of stuff, and supporting people in that regard, but still sell consumer cars. The really clever thing about Porsche is that they're just doing all of it all at the same time in the kind of right sort of way, and not forgetting like the engineering and the motorsport stuff.
Yeah, true. And I guess
which obviously takes money and commitment.
Yeah. And I guess all these things What are these things? What you call these things we're reading out? It's like how a Porsche owner thinks, right? It's basically sort of trying to
Insights? They're supposed to be maybe insights?
Yeah, the insights. The typical Porsche owner is a serious car enthusiast. You disagree with that, right?
Yeah, because I don't think all of them are. I do think like maybe now these days there will be people that buy into it more for status kind of thing, and what it says about them, as opposed to necessarily really appreciating like the engineering behind it, or that type of thing. Like sort of buying into it for the fact that it's a Porsche, as opposed to necessarily kind of going, well, understanding how well it handles, or how like well engineered the engine is.
But that comes once you become an owner, though, doesn't it? I guess maybe the reasons why you buy it, some reasons that some people buy it, and then once you've got it, then you realize, then you see the other things.
Yeah, maybe. But that's a big leap of faith. But
it's like a reward,
like
isn't
to go
it?
and spend.
So you think it's more a reward. The Porsche, a 911 or a Porsche of any sort is a reward to yourself. So it's a selfish act.
Yeah, I do think so. I know it always has been for me. It's like,
Speak for yourself. I was going to say
everybody else. I'm buying an 911.
I'm buying a GT3. I don't care how loud it is. I don't care about my neighbors.
See, like, again, I do sort of think timing is an interesting one. I think you mentioned it somewhere, but you're either going to get into it.
The last one is timing. Well, timing. Another one was timing. This was someone's comment, right? So I'll read it in how they've written it. Timing for me was all about affordability at the time of my life. Two of my kids were adults and the youngest was under 10. So the financial burden of additional school fees had reduced. So it's financial. Your financial situation has changed, whether or not you've got more disposable income or whether or not you've got more salary, whatever it is.
And I completely agree with that, because like everybody dreams about owning a sports car, but it's a big step. So these days, like you kind of go, it seems like there's a ton of people that kind of do it after they've bought their sort of, forever house, they've had their kids and they've schooled them and all of that type of stuff. If you're, I'm again generalizing,
yes.
You do all of that sort of stuff and you make all those kind of financial commitments. And then once it's available to you and you can actually go and spend the money after you've kind of done all those things, you get into a Porsche.
Yeah, true.
And I'm going to take a wild guess that that's probably the majority of people. Then there would be the other people, which was like me 20 something years ago, where it's like, didn't have family, didn't have other commitments. I did it before I got a mortgage, all of that sort of stuff. And I was just that
sensible,
sort of batshit crazy that I tip every single penny into kind of getting the car first. And in a weird sort of way, it kind of also did work, because the fact that they didn't drop their value, like I've said to you in the past, just, like if in the past, like you had 60 grand and you sunk your full, that was every penny that you owned, at least your 60 grand didn't turn into 15 grand and then you were basically screwed. Yep. Like your 60 grand sort of, may have been 50 grand and it let you kind of keep going sort of thing.
Okay. Do you think then... Sorry. Do you think then that's how it's changed today? That people unfortunately see Porsche as an investment. They see that it appreciates and they want it. A lot of new owners are coming in wanting it as a pure investment, and not that they really want the car.
Yes. I do think like that.
A little bit happened to Ferrari as well, right? People just buy it because they don't necessarily want to drive the Ferrari. They just want it as purely as an investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't name names, but even I think my brother-in-law was telling me a sort of an example of that. And I just kind of got the feeling he showed me a car and just sort of said a friend of his got it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, yeah. But it struck me as like, oh, he was purely doing that for financial reasons, wasn't he? And I don't know, maybe it sounds snobby or wankery of me kind of thing, but I just kind of go, wouldn't that car be better served like being owned and driven by somebody who really appreciated it for what it was, as opposed to it being an object that is an asset that makes money or a status symbol or whatever else. Like, it would be ideally cooler if that stayed in the sort of enthusiast kind of realm. And look, I know I'm kind of talking complete nonsense, because that's
No, you're not.
like an idyllic world of, that's not reality. But back to the original thing, I think that's what Doug DeMuro was kind of getting to, which is it's just look, your listenership, like anybody that's listening to this, is not going to fall into any of this kind of category. Like if you're listening to this podcast, then you're more like-minded and you're not the sort of person that I'm talking about. But I do think that it's a bit of a pity that it seems to maybe kind of going that way.
Well, seeing a Porsche as an investment, like we were spoken about last week or the week before, I forget when it was, let's not make them so precious that they're not drivable, that you don't want to enjoy it, that you don't want to drive it. And this whole investment and this whole price thing that's happening, a lot of models are becoming like that. So they're taken off the market and people aren't getting to enjoy them. You know what I mean? They're not enjoying them. It's just purely a dollar and cents thing. It's just like buying crypto or investing in stocks. That's all it is.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like I'm not sort of sitting on my heart, because I think I keep sort of saying that type of thing too. But like obviously it's an upside to all of us owning Porsches, which is, oh shit, like it's turned out to be a really smart sort of decision. So I'm not kind of going, oh, I definitely wish it wasn't like that. Like I'm still kind of going, oh, look at me. Like I've kind of
money.
Yeah, I've theoretically I've theoretically made money, but it is theory. And it does justify your decisions, and it does make you feel better because you've kind of not, tanked half your,
Mate,
the equity that you've kind of put into something. But so it would be a lie for me to say otherwise.
Yeah, but if you sold your car tomorrow, imagine how much money you'd have in your pocket.
Yeah, but then what would I buy with that money in my pocket? That's the next problem. So it does, like it is cool that like this kind of has happened for people like us that are already in it. But I do kind of go, oh, it's a bit hard. It does make it harder for people that, you'd love to kind of have in the kind of community, but they can't stretch. And
that's the sad side.
They've made it harder, and it's
year
going to other people
harder.
that maybe, Yeah,
no, you're right. Every year it's become more and more difficult. Like you feel like you got in. I know when I got in, I thought I was too late. You know what I mean? And I was too late for certain models. But now looking back on it, 5 years ago almost in February, I wasn't too late. You know what I mean? I wasn't too late at all.
Yeah, and it's never too late. Like for anybody that's thinking about it, never too late. Like if you can do it, definitely do it. It's cool as, and it's fun as. But it's just a pity that it's maybe become a little bit harder, or maybe, I don't know how everybody else feels about it, but if you kind of go, the people that can afford all the new ones and they are sort of showing them off as a bit more of a thing of status or whatever else, like
showing multiple ones off too.
Do you necessarily want to be represented or thought of in the same sort of thing as that? Like,
good point.
No, I don't.
Good point. Okay, on that point, Steve, let's leave, but I want to finish with this one question.
Sorry, I've really rambled.
I want to finish with this one question because that's a good one. You said, do you want to be seen as a people? So based on the Porsche America Commission study and the 5 personality types that they outlined.
Oh, God, you're not going to ask
Which one? Which one, Steve, do you see you? Are you a Top Gun? Are you an elitist?
I am definitely
Are you
not
a
a Top
proud
Gun.
patron? Are you a bon vivant? Are you a fantasist? Which one are you?
If I have to choose that, yes. Like you are right that you are a proud sort of patron. That is the enthusiast kind of part of that brief, or that sort of target audience breakdown.
I think so too.
But like, same thing. Like, if you posted that on Instagram and then you ask people to kind of want to be put in one of those categories, like everybody's going to vomit in their mouths and kind of go, I don't want to be in any of those groups.
But this, no doubt Porsche is still doing these sort of studies, right? In different ways with social and whatever. They're still doing this collection of data. It'd be great to see some current information, actually. It'd be great to see what they're collecting now and what the information is.
I should caveat this too. Like a lot of my really good friends, some of my best friends are strategists and they write these things.
Right.
And I say this to their faces in terms of sometimes
Steve's
the way that it's written. So like I do kind of get it. It's a difficult task to kind of try to segment people and then describe them. But, for the very fact that you're trying to group them into like a segment means that you're not you're not giving them the ability to be an individual as well, I guess.
But even, car sales, even if it's exhibitions, you still have to look at who you're, even with exhibitions, right? You have to look at who your visitor is going to be. You need to know who your visitor is going to be. You need to know how you're going to get the story across. And, the
because you need to know who you're talking to.
And then the client always wants to know what the takeaway is. What are they going to take away?
Yes.
What are they going to remember when they leave? You know what I mean? Are they going to tell other people? Are they going to share it? Are they going to tweet it? Are they going to post it? So it's all about that. And unfortunately, it's not going to go away, not with the likes of Meta. Is it Meta? Facebook. With Instagram and Facebook and all these other things. Everyone's collecting data. It's all about, they want to know who we are. I'm sure PorscheCooled Podcast actually helps them when they hear owner stories. They get a lot of information from that.
Final question then for you is, what do you think people, like the general population, therefore think about a Porsche owner? Like a normal person, not an enthusiast.
General person in the street?
Yep. So like, your mother-in-law who might not be into cars, or your brother who's not into cars, or...
Probably flashy. Probably flashy, probably expensive.
Yep. And do you think it was always like that? Or do you think it's changed? Like if you sort of asked the same question like 20 years ago?
I think people who don't know about the brand might still see it in that way. I hate to say it. People who don't really know about 911s. I told you my story with my niece, right? When I showed her the car for the first time, her and our husband. And then I opened the back and she said, "Oh, the engine's in the boot."
Yes.
She had no idea.
Yep.
And I think that, I laughed, but then I think how many other people are out there that like that? People who look at me when I open the front of the car and put the 6 packs of water in the front. They're probably going, "Oh, there's no engine in there." I think, we forget that we know so much about the brand and we're so deep into it. We're all such enthusiasts, like I said, that listen to the podcast and listen to other Porsche podcasts, that we forget that, it's the perception of everyone else, isn't it? How they see us.
And I think maybe you've just answered it for me. Like, I reckon what's changed is that I reckon from 20 years ago or more to now is that my guess is that people sort of think a Porsche owner is flashier than it used to be. And that's what I don't like about it. I reckon like in the past, it hasn't necessarily been as kind of overtly flash. And I think it's kind of crept towards that sort of slight sort of Ferrari vibe, which is what I dislike about, where it's evolved maybe.
I'm not sure about that. I do know though, and I've said this many times before, Steve, is when I'm driving on the road, I feel that and I'm respectful anyway, but I feel that there is a lot of, I feel there's more respect when I'm in the 911 than what it was when I was in the Audi. And I don't know why, but I feel like there is, where people will let me in, people will, if I let someone in, they'll put their hand out the window and wave where they didn't before. So I feel in that respect, I don't know why that happens. It confuses me, but I feel like there is more respect. Like, even when I'm coming out of a park, coming out of a park, someone will like wait for you.
I can answer that
before they used to run me down.
Your car is not so overt. It's silver. It's a sophisticated, like it's a very kind of classic design, all of that sort of stuff. Like your car is not super flash. But if you were in sort of like a lava orange, GT3 RS, like with a massive wing and a huge exhaust and all of that
people
sort of
would
stuff, hate me. I think you'd probably get slightly different treatment, maybe.
Right, that's a good test.
Go and buy one. Go and buy one and do the test.
And then I'll send the results to Porsche and say, "This is the results of my sample." What is it?
Yeah,
random sample.
Your focus group.
Focus group. I did a focus group for you, Porsche. Steve, let's end. We're finished.
Cool. Sorry, I'll apologize. I know I've just kind of went off in massive tangents and ranted because it was close to stuff that I'm used to, which I have strong opinions about.
So are you going to go out and change your exhaust over today?
Nope.
Okay, good.
I'm going to wait for another drive with you guys and see how it goes, and then probably sit on the fence for a bit and just sort of see. But yeah, don't know. All
right, mate. Thanks. Cool. Let's go.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, everyone. That's Steve. My name is Michael Barth. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled Podcast. Bye for now.